Welcome to Florida, people. Give Mickey all your money. Cranes Roost, have today off. My long weekend. Unfortunately, just dropped my wife off at work. Sorry, dear. Got another plane coming in, bringing those tourists. Nice. I was gonna shave my head. All that stuff last night. Never did get around to it. It's okay. Can do that today. Heading down to the Phil Fest tomorrow. Filipino festival over in Tampa. Kind of an annual thing over there. They have a consular outreach and stuff over there. You know, if people want to go and get their dual citizenship and things like that. My wife needs to do that sometime, though at the moment she's content with her American citizenship. But before we move back over to the Philippines, she'll be doing that. Get some of our property and stuff transferred into her name officially instead of her mom's name and all of that, you know, and be able to have all the benefits of being a citizen there. You know, of course, I'm not planning to do that as far as getting any kind of a Filipino citizenship. No way I would ever renounce my American citizenship for anything, you know, so. Oh, wow. Being strafed by the ducks here. What I was thinking about today, though, it's buff American expats in the Philippines. They really seem to trigger some people. You know, you've got some guys out there who, you know, we know, you see them, you know, love to talk about, oh, I'm on my way to the gym this morning every day. And, you know, some of these guys like to make a big deal about stuff like that. But it's funny to me, there's a certain British guy, wonder who that could be. Every time he talks about one of these Americans, oh man, he loves to rag on them for being fit, you know? They talk about being fit and working out, and he always kind of mocks them, like, you know, like showing their big muscles, like the American, you know, idea of being a, you know, a badass or a tough guy and all that kind of stuff. He always uses it as kind of a mocking sort of a thing. And we know some of these guys, look, you know, they like to push it in your face. And, but, you know, if the rest of us want to work out every day and all of that and be super buff, we can do that too, you know. It's not their fault that we're not doing it, and they are. But it brings up an interesting point, though, about being an expat in the Philippines or anywhere and physical fitness, you know. It's very, very important to stay fit, and especially if you're retired. I'm not, you know, any kind of a weightlifter really, like I, you know, have been at certain points in my life. I'm out carrying mail every day and stuff like that, getting a lot of exercise in that regard. I'm moving all day long, which is fortunate, you know. At least that keeps me somewhat in shape and flexible and strong, you know. Getting out, I've got part of my route where I'm walking around, you know, actually walking the streets to everybody's house. You know, I got a lot of it where I'm just like in and out of the truck all day, you know, climbing down, take stuff up to their house, carrying heavy packages and things. Every time I come back up to the truck, you know, climb another couple of steps back up into the truck. you know, like twisting and turning. Those seat belts that we have, you have to twist so hard to try and reach all the way back down to get them plugged in again. You know, twisting, pulling that door shut, open and shut all day. The emergency brakes on some of those things are so hard to pull. But you got to do all that shit every single time you get in, or else you're going to lose your job, you know. Somebody sees you not putting that seatbelt on, you're done. So at least I have that to kind of keep me active. And I'm not just sitting around at a desk all day in an office. I'm out moving around, you know. So I'm happy for that. But certainly, if you don't have that going on, and even if you do, resistance exercise is very, very important if you want to live a long life. One of the things you'll see, I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen this stat before, but people talk about how finding out if somebody is at risk to have a heart attack and things like that. I've seen stuff where they say that whether or not a person can do 40 push-ups is a much better indicator actually of that than all these things like stress tests and stuff on treadmills, which a lot of people don't think about. And let's be honest, a lot of people that you encounter, even a lot of supposedly fit young guys, if you ask them to crank out 40 push-ups, they're not going to be able to do it. But if you're an older person getting up in years and you can still do that, you know, that's something to be very happy about. I know there have been times in my life when I was just a fiend for push-ups. I had a part-time job one time at this convenience store, and I worked the night shift there. And I would go back in our little room in the back where we had the ice maker and all of that to bag up ice and keep our extra supplies and things. And I'd get some of the plastic milk crates, and I'd get 3 of those, you know, put my feet up on one, have 2 other ones for my hands, so, you know, and get myself up off the ground so that I could dip myself down low, below horizontal. And I'd go in there a few times a night and crank out 50 push-ups. And I wish I could still do that, because I know I can't now. But man, I was doing hundreds of push-ups every day. And it's very important to keep yourself working like that. And some of these expats who are trying to stay strong and do that weightlifting and everything, it's a very important thing. If you want to go and live in a foreign country, especially where you know you're on your own and you don't have anybody to help you, because the big thing about aging is not just about whether or not you're going to live to a certain age, but whether or not you're going to be able to live independently. If you don't want to be one of those people who has to sit around and make vlogs about how you had to go and hire some Filipina to move in with you and take care of you so you could go to the bathroom and needed her help, might be nice to be still in shape. That's one of the things that that you'll find with older people. They say one of the first things to go really is like in your legs even. A lot of people don't realize it. As time goes on, even just standing up from a chair, people start to rely on using their arms and pushing up on the arms of the chair to stand up instead of just using their legs to be able to stand up. A lot of people don't even realize that those muscles are going and that they're losing that strength until it's, you know, too late. But especially in your legs, once you get to even past 40, 50, you start to lose muscle mass, and that's a very big indicator sometimes of how you're going to handle yourself and whether or not you're going to be able to live a strong, independent life. You know, some of these guys, you know, so what? You know, if they've got abs and they work out and they're proud of that and they want to walk around without a shirt and impress you, that doesn't mean that they're just a cocky American who thinks that they're a macho man. You know, maybe they are a macho man, whatever, you know. But it's funny how that kind of triggers some people. It's really something we should all be striving for in terms of staying fit. And especially if you're retired and you're not getting out working every day, you need to be doing something. And more people are finding out these days that resistance exercise and weight training is at least as important in many ways as aerobic conditioning. A lot of people, they think, well, hey, as long as I can go out and walk around a little every day. And you see the kind of walking they're doing. I mean, if you're super old and you can't really get around really well, even just to be able to go out and shuffle around and do stuff is nice. But you see the way some people walk, and they're not improving their aerobic fitness very much because they're not moving very fast. That's one thing. I've always been a really fast walker. When I'm with other people, they're like, man, hold up, what's the hurry? Where are we going? I know one time we were at SeaWorld, my wife and I, that's what she was telling people. It's like I was dragging her along, She has to tell me sometimes, can you slow down, please, because I want to get where I'm going, But if you're going to be living overseas in a foreign country, probably the most important thing you can do is take care of your health. Be strong so you can live an independent life, because you're going to a place where there's no one else you can count on really, and you're on your own, and you can't afford to fall apart and not be able to do things on your own, especially in a lot of these countries that aren't like America where we drive everywhere. You get somewhere where maybe you don't even own a car anymore or something, you're going to be doing a lot of walking, and that can help keep you in shape. But pumping a little iron and being a macho man, as some people like to say, can go a long, long way toward keeping you healthy. And if it makes other people envious to the point where they want to bitch about you and make it sound like it's a negative, well, hey, maybe that's good too, It's kind of fun to tweak people sometimes. Sometimes we look at people who are staying in shape, and maybe it makes us uncomfortable that we're not doing as much as we know we should. And so instead of looking at ourselves and thinking, man, I need to do better, then we want to try and run them down like there's something wrong with what they're doing, which there's not. There's a tactical trainer named Gabe Suarez, some of you may have heard of. Spent a long time in Los Angeles, the county sheriff's department out there, and was an instructor at Gunsight with Jeff Cooper, runs a training company. But he's very devoted to his working out and martial arts and stuff. And he likes to talk about these people who claim to be tactical trainers and self-defense instructors, and they're carrying around their big man fetus, and how the number one thing we can do for our security is to look like somebody that it wouldn't be a good idea to fuck with. If you've got like a big giant man fetus and little skinny shoulders and stuff, and people look at you and think that you're an easy mark, that's probably not really good overseas either, walking around in a foreign country. It's good sometimes if you're going to be in that environment, people can see that you can take care of yourself and that you're strong and you're not just shuffling along. All they have to do is walk up to you and blow you over with a little breath, and you're not going to be a problem. So sometimes it's good. A lot of these vloggers will tell you how you have to blend in and be low profile in the Philippines and all of that. You don't want to necessarily walk around like you're trying to intimidate everybody, like, look, the Americans are here to take charge now, and stuff like that. But it can be good when you're in a foreign country for people to look at you and know that maybe you're someone not to mess with, because you're a stranger in a strange land. A lot of times people do want to mess with you. Anyway, I was just thinking about that the other day as I watched that guy talking about another American and his muscles. It's good to have people talk about your muscles. More of us need to be paying attention to that stuff instead of wasting away, Anyway, here I am watching the ducks and the tourists coming in on the airplanes. Of course, the ducks aren't on the airplanes. They're already got their own wings. Going to try and take some decent video down at the Filipino festival. Filipino festival, not Filipina. I've taken a lot of video there before, several times when we were there, and I never really get around to posting the stuff. So I'm going to try and do better this year. I'm a lazy YouTuber. I have to force myself to make videos sometimes, and even when I think I'm going to, I take all kinds of video, never gets posted. I'm actually living a more interesting life than you would know by checking out my YouTube channel. We'll see what happens.